don't know what you're talking about. No, I registered Lola with... What's it? Monarch? Like a giant butterfly? Cool. Yeah, no. I registered Lola months ago, before I even got out of that. Yeah. She's about 60 tons on a good day. Yeah. No, I feel you. God, what? Zilla? That doesn't sound right. It sounds like it's way too heavy. I should have one of my giant monkeys punch it. Oh. Hello, and welcome to Office Hours, the live component of the facility where good old Professor Kyle opens up his blast doors. As you just saw, they're very thick. It allows all the professors at the facility, all the staff, my security team, and also you from the general public to come in and ask questions of your boy here, whether they be science-related, pop culture-related, related to my hair and face. Someone in the chat called me bearded Amy Schumer earlier. And that doesn't make any sense. I have my own jokes. And of course we go through a number of topics that found me saying, hey, huh, wow, during the week that I wanted to discuss with you. And we also take all of your questions. As I said, if you really, really want to have your questions seen by me, you can, of course, use the super chat function on YouTube, and I'll try my very best to get to all of those. And if you want to continue on this conversation afterwards, remember, we are live. You can go to patreon.com/Kyle Hill and join the facility today, get in our Discord, get members only live streams, not like that, and you can have all the science you could possibly want. For example, I mean, we have weekly facility supporter Elizabeth Calvert with the $50 who says, Kyle, wanted to give you a thank you for what you do. Oh, and my tiny human, Alex, happy birthday, understood what your answer last week, so you do know how to talk to kids. Well, I love answering kids' questions. They have usually better questions than adults in my experience, and Elizabeth's tiny human wanted to know, why can't you travel faster than the speed of light, or something like that. And it's because time and space would become irrelevant concepts to you, and you would no longer exist, and you'd break causality, that kind of thing. That's the kind of fun thing we get up to here at the facility. But I know a lot of you are here for the big old fight, so why don't we pause the super chats for just a second, and let's get into it. A more scientific Godzilla versus Kong, and once we get into that, we'll be talking about, we'll be Konging. We'll be talking about what looks like breath from Godzilla, but is in fact real. We'll also be talking about worms named after a terrible thing that happened. And finally, we'll be taking one of your comments from the latest episode of the facility. But before all that, it's time to fight, baby. Okay. So, Godzilla versus Kong. Legendary Pictures has been building up to this for a long time. I will recuse myself from judging the movie, whether it looks good or bad. I used to work for Legendary Pictures, but now I have my own mugs that are invisible. So, how would we evaluate this fight more scientifically, as we want to do? Well, this is a little bit of an exercise. I know many of you have strong opinions. I've been reading the chat. I read chat. Many of you strong opinions about who will win, the big lizard or monkey. But what we have to do, being members of the facility, being smart boys and bays, we need to try to find some objective ways of interpreting this. And this involves finding common units of measurement, common assumptions, things that we can all agree on so we can come to some sort of conclusion. Now, this isn't Death Battle. We don't just guess who would win. We're going to try to figure it out. So, as if I would be going through an episode of Because Science or something like that. Now, I will say that this is objectively impossible to do. You can't really say who would win, but we can try to make good arguments for and against who would win or not. So let's see. We look at the trailer for Godzilla v Kong. We have to look at the trailer now because movie theaters are dying, but So we look at the trailer of Godzilla vs. Kong, and what do we see? People saying I'm taking shots in the chat? Yeah, I can do whatever I want now, within certain legal boundaries. So we look at the trailer, and the first thing that I see is a size and material strength issue. So first what we have to do is put aside complaints of physiological strength. In reality, a monkey butt this big, with known physiology that we know of animals on Earth, Godzilla, you know, all those Godzilla monsters have some leeway because there's aliens and crap, but known earthen biology, we do not know of any circulatory system or bones or muscles that could sustain a creature such as King Kong. I think I said Godzilla by accident, but King Kong is too big. He'd take a step, his knees would explode, his blood pressure would be crazy, that if you like cut off his head, it would shoot up, you know, a couple stories or something like that, if it were real. There's no known physiology that makes either Godzilla or Kong really work. Let's put that aside for a second. Let's just say they can do it, okay? So first what I see is a material problem. By which I mean, this is Godzilla's tail, and Godzilla's tail is smacking a fighter jet out of the air. And if we want to get technical with it, which we do, fighter jets, I had to look this up on Wikipedia, but fighter jets reportedly go pretty fast. And when you have a fast hunk of metal impacting something and exploding in fractions of a second, that is a heck of a lot of force. You could calculate exactly how much force I usually use the work energy theorem. So the amount of work done on some object is equal, or can be equal, to the change in kinetic energy of that object. So what we would do is we would take the mass and velocity, the kinetic energy, 1/2 mv squared, of the fighter jet, don't worry, we're going somewhere, of the fighter jet, and assume that it goes from, let's say, you know, a couple hundred miles an hour to 0. So we can leave off one of the kinetic energy terms. So now we have a giant value of kinetic energy. Work, as it so happens, equals force times distance. So now we assume that, let's say that the fighter jet came to a stop within its own length. It just got crumpled and exploded. Sorry, headphone users. Now, if we do that, we can divide kinetic energy difference by that distance, and we will get a literal amount of force. Now, I don't have to do the math off the top of my head, though I could, to tell you that this is going to be tens, if not hundreds of thousands of newtons of force on Godzilla's tail here. So right off the bat, seeing that this does 0 damage to Godzilla, ostensibly, the fact that he's willing to do this, it's probably, you know, not doing a whole lot of damage, means that his tail, his scales, and you can see by his scales reflecting gunfire and missile explosions and stuff like that, his tail is made out of some really, really, really strong stuff. Now, I don't think that a monkey, the skin and the fur, would have the same kind of material strength to, you know, swat a fighter jet out of the air without the hand being completely shredded and destroyed. Some of you in the chat are mentioning what happens to birds when they impact planes, and yes, this is exactly the same thing. A 1-pound duck hitting a plane at cruising speed, 550 miles per hour, if you do the exact same equation I just outlined, it's like 12 tons of force. So a 1-pound bird equating to 12, oh, what is it? It would be 24,000 pounds of force. One bird, you hit it, multiply that feeling by 24,000. So you can imagine just how strong Godzilla's tail would be. So Kong is going to have a very hard time getting to the meaty, the areas that could be stabbed or pinched or pulled. But that doesn't mean that King Kong doesn't have any advantages. The advantages of being a exothermic, a warm-blooded animal, is speed and coordination. Now, it's very possible, as it was possible for large dinosaurs, that Godzilla is what we call a megotherm. Megatherm. In that it is not explicitly warm-blooded, but because it's so massive, there's so much volume compared to the surface area, the heat literally cannot escape that surface area fast enough, and it heats up the Lizzie Boy's body so much so that it might as well be warm-blooded. It's a very cool thing. We think that leatherback sea turtles are megotherms, and if you haven't seen a leatherback sea turtle, put it next to a person, they are enormous. So, all that being said, King Kong is explicitly exothermic, which means he's going to have a speed advantage and a coordination advantage. I say that because we know that muscles that run hotter, have better blood flow at higher temperatures, are more effective. You can fire them easier, and we know that because of, say, apex predators in the oceans, like swordfish and great white sharks, where they will have certain parts of their body, and tuna, certain parts of their body, they've evolved to have different blood vessels that reroute blood to different parts of their body, like their eyes or their muscles, so they function better in very cold water. So Gray is betting $10 on the thermonuclear lizard. Is it thermonuclear? That means fusion is going on. Anyway, we'll get to that. But King Kong would probably have a speed advantage and probably an intelligence advantage. Again, unless there's some like weird alien thing, you know, whatever. We would expect King Kong to be more intelligent if we base these creatures on animals that we know. So there's a speed and intelligence factor here. But speed and intelligence could be beaten by something like a radioactive laser beam from your face? Now, my favorite explanation that I came up with for this radioactive breath is that it's not a beam of plasma, so to speak. It's not like a laser. It's not like a blaster bolt, that kind of thing. It is more so, and we'll see this actually in the next topic. What I think is a better explanation for what Godzilla is doing is literally just firing out a beam of high energy particles. Normally, you would not be able to see these high energy particles, but what they are doing is smashing into the air, the gases in the air. They excite the gases in the air, and to get rid of that excitement, so to speak, the air releases photons that happen to be blue. We see this happen. For example, right after the Chernobyl nuclear disaster, workers reported seeing this. And I'm not joking. Because the top of reactor number 4 was blown out, workers reported seeing a beam of blue light going up into the sky because radiation was just shooting up into the sky because it wasn't as blocked by buildings and stuff. So, that being said, we've seen that this beam of energy, or a beam of radioactive particles, in my estimation, it doesn't instantly kill, like, other monsters, at least in this franchise. But if this was a real thing, and it was this big, and it was generating that kind of blue flash, it could probably irradiate King Kong in a fraction of a second. It wouldn't necessarily immediately kill Kong, depending on where the beam hits. But this is like, you know, sticking your head in a particle accelerator. This could instantly irradiate you and lead to what scientists call monkey cancer. So I know Kong's probably going to get hit by it in the movie, and it's going to be like, oh, my flesh is burned, but I can still win. But in reality, I think it would probably given the energies here, like straight up vaporize a limb or something like that, and then give him monkey cancer. Chef Smoke with the 20 says, the almighty basilisk, blessed be his scaliness, says, let them fight. That's a sneak peek of what's happening in the facility D&D part of the Discord tonight. Kyle, will you join us? I'm busy. But there's something else that King Kong has going for he, she, they. One of the aspects of intelligence that raises animals to a level of intelligence that we start to respect is tool use. So once we start seeing animals intelligent enough to use tools, we evaluate them as more conscious, more sentient, etc., more intelligent, at least according to us. I will say that intelligence isn't the only way forward in evolution, of course not. A slug is as evolved as you are. But intelligence seems to be one of the ways that works out sometimes. One of the hallmarks of that is tool use. So if a large monkey can, I don't know what this is, but if it's absorbing that radiation, this radiation beam, it's something weird. I mean, it might just be getting in the way, but usually radiation can go right through it. Anyway, so if the monkey is using tools, this is a big boon for he, she, they in comparison to a fight with Godzilla. And before I forget, could they both stand on a, on an aircraft carrier like that? Well, the total displacement for an aircraft carrier around that size in the water is like 100,000 tons. 100,000 tons, depending on which actual unit they're using, could be like 100 million kilograms. And in 2016 or whatever it was, Godzilla was like 90 million kilograms. So you're already 90% of the way completely loaded in, assuming there's nothing else on the aircraft carrier. So could it hold both of them? Probably not. Could it? Definitely not. I mean, it would sink it. One of them jumping up differentially on the other is putting a bending moment, like a steel beam, on this thing that is being flexed in a way that is not meant to flex. It probably would break, shatter, bend. It would be bad. It would be bad, but it looks cool. So they put it in. J Potter 14 with the 20 says, notice me, senpai. Hey, consider yourself on my watch list. But seriously, I've been following you for years, since your other channel that shall not be named. Just want to thank you for keeping me learning and entertained. Well, that's what we're doing when we're evaluating monkeys fighting giant lizards. Thank you for that. Grim Reaper of Trolls with the 20 says, so Godzilla uses a matter beam? Original super nerd matter beam. Yes, if he's shooting out, if this beam is neutrons or high energy protons that like the same kind of thing that fly around a particle accelerator, you can, if you look up right now, cyclotron on Wikipedia, you see a picture of particles flying out of a cyclotron, and it produces, what's that? A beam that looks like this, a blue glow. So it's definitely a very possible thing to make happen if it is in fact a particle beam, a matter beam, if you will. So now I think we have gone through a number of different pros and cons for each of these creatures. I want you now to put in the chat, just type Godzilla or Kong. Just Godzilla, just one word. And I want to get I want to gauge your reaction. I kind of know where my head's at, but I want to see where the chat is at with where you think this fight is, given what we've talked about. Ross Peterson with the 50 says, hey Kyle, I've been a fan since, before. I've never been able to catch your live streams. I haven't really tried. Well, you see, that's the issue. Commitment. But since I'm here now, I wanted to lend my support. Keep being awesome. Looking forward to more of your content. Thank you so much, Ross. It all goes towards the goal of educating and entertaining. I will say that there's not going to be a video this week because my experiment went totally wrong and I wasn't able to film what I wanted to film, and I got a giant bruise on my leg because something hit me really hard. Alicia, always a supporter with the 10, says, I can't stay for the entire live stream, but I wanted to offer just a little bit of simp. Love it. Sergeant Sphinx, the 20, says, I always thought the nuclear lizard was supposed to be a result of the Bikini Atoll test, specifically the Castle Bravo detonation, or is that a retcon? So as we will also go through, as we will also go through, if you haven't watched the latest episode of The Facility about the Castle Bravo disaster, one of our another mini documentary in our Half-Life Histories series, I suggest that you do, because as a result of this disaster that a lot of people don't know about, as a result of this one nuclear explosion that was so much bigger than anyone anticipated, a Japanese producer went on to use that and make a film that captured fears about nuclear weapons and made the first Godzilla movie. So the Castle Bravo disaster, again, you should watch it. It's like 20 minutes. I think we did a good job. But it directly led to the creation of Godzilla, which I think is awesome. A lot of super chats coming in, but I want to see where the chat is at. A lot of people are saying they like how I say monkey. I'm saying it like Shrek would say it, I think. A lot of people are saying Batman with enough prep time. Yeah, I don't. In the last Godzilla movie, they tried to blow up Godzilla with like an oxygen deleting bomb, like it would eliminate all the oxygen. How? Oh, and the Earth is hollow. How? Why? I was literally, I think I can say this. I was literally in the screening room at Legendary Pictures doing research on the movie, looking at the movie, and it was just me and one other person in there, and I said out loud when they're like, maybe the Earth is hollow, we knew it. And I was like, what? Why did someone call me? I'm on the staff. Oxygen destroyer, that's it. Okay, so a lot of people are saying One Punch Man or Batman. And we have, Saf with the 1,000 yen, who says, hard to catch the live stream from Okinawa, Japan. I just watched Tenet and I loved it. It seems like great fodder for a show. Any plans to cover it? Thank you for watching from Japan. I have actually not seen Tenet yet, because it seems like the thing I would want to watch on the big screen, but all the movies are dead. So I don't know when I'm going to get to it. So it looks like most people, if I'm interpreting this right, most people think Godzilla would take it. And to be honest, I think you're right. I think Godzilla would take it. In that, look, Godzilla is obviously incredibly resilient. He has projectile weapons. He's more massive. He might not be as intelligent or as mobile, but it would only take really one good swipe of the tail or one good shot to incapacitate the monkey. Now, is that going to happen in the film? Definitely not, because they want to make as much money as possible and they want the franchise to continue, and especially they're anticipating this movie, I'm guessing, to do well, so it's probably not going to kill off either one of them. And you can just feed Godzilla radiation, or it could just like eat an atom bomb, then it's cool again. And in the previous movie, he turned all red and then emitted out so much radiation that the entire city melted. So I'm giving a slight edge to Godzilla. I think that's not going to happen in the movie. But, you know, if I was Godzilla and the monkey wanted to fight you, what do? Fight on your own terms. It's a semi-aquatic creature. Go in the ocean. What is a monkey going to do? Kind of like dog paddle to shore? And then you just bite it in the leg and you just pull it down. You weigh more and you just keep it there. You ever seen a whale do that? I have. They just grab onto someone's leg and they just float down and they just stay there until the person stops kicking. That's what Blackfish, the orca that was the subject of Blackfish, it did that like more than once. Just grabs on your leg, just holds you down, you're dead. That got darker than I wanted to. A woman got her arm ripped off. We don't have to talk about that, but I'm saying that's what Godzilla would do. That's what I would do if I was trying to defeat a monkey. A lot of people are agreeing with me. We have decaf coffee. I still want to see what y'all think a little bit. We have decaf coffee with the $9.99. Hey, Kyle, love the show. Do you think that humanity could create a black hole? Not necessarily at the moment, but if it's within our given reach with current technology, I think absolutely not. The amount of mass that you need to create a black hole well, it doesn't so much matter the mass, but the mass determines the size of the black hole. And so, I mean, we would need to be able to control more mass than the planet Earth, and you'd have to shrink that down into something that's like handheld. So it's impossible. It's impossible for us to do right now. It's not theoretically impossible to do, but for us, for humans right now, absolutely. The Latino guy with the 20 says the oxygen destroyer. I think the way it was explained during Godzilla versus Destroyer, that the oxygen destroyer uses something called micro-oxygen that more similarly works like anti-oxygen annihilating oxygen, but like more so than that. Anti-oxygen is just antimatter. Everything that's an antiparticle to a particle is just antimatter. It'd be oxygen, O2 as it exists diatomically. O2, it would just have a different charge and it would annihilate. The problem being with antimatter and antimatter weapons in general is that they react with everything. If it's generally antimatter, if you expose any bit of it to air or it touches anything else, it explodes. When the bomb exploded, it would mostly react with the oxygen in the water around Godzilla, not just Godzilla. Also, Godzilla, there was a lot wrong with that film. Thomas Haydrick, always supporting me with the 20, says, science is my passion. Godzilla is made out of the hopes and dreams of producers. Have you seen the report that a physicist in Australia has mathematically proven time travel without paradoxes? I think we did a live episode about that, and then the physicist contacted me and said, you got my paper wrong. So I'm still in an email chain with that person, and we might get back to that, actually. Camera Anime says, I think it's going to be the plot twist of humans made a Mechagodzilla, making him villainous so they can have an excuse to use kaijus like Kong for their own means after he deals with Godzilla. Yeah, I saw a lot of chatter online of people saying it's just Mechagodzilla. I'm going to be honest with you. I don't really care about Godzilla canon at all. But it's fun to watch, big monster movies. So I think everyone's agreeing Godzilla has an edge. And with that, let's see since I've already been talking for 30 minutes about this, let's see what you have to say instead of what I have to say. And we can go to my very own kaiju enclosure. See if you can find her. Oh, there we go. See if you can find the kaiju in the window. Jorge Adrian Montes Pimentel says, could Kong kick the water fast enough to create enough force to walk on it? No. The only things that can walk on water are things that are so small, like insects, that their little peats and little dudes don't break surface tension. Anything like Godzilla, King Kong is definitely going to break surface tension, and so you have to kick the water with an equivalent force to hold your mass up under Earth's gravity. That amount of force would require moving your legs so dang quickly. It's many Mach numbers. So there's no way he would look like a cartoon character moving his legs that fast. Impossible. For a creature such as this, Becca McShane with the 5 says, hey Kyle, love the show. Hey, thank you for saying it correctly. Gosh darn it. Here's a tiny simp for science. Can you please say hi to my husband, Justin? He's a very beautiful physicist. Thank you. Hey Justin, I hear you're one of the sexiest physicists alive. Well, isn't your wife a lucky woman? Hello. Shout out. Whatever. You get it. Feel free to cut that, send it directly to him. I haven't seen him, so I don't know, like how sexy we talking. Sunny Mountain with the $50 donation, it says, hey Kyle, so in the manga Jujutsu Kaisen, there's a character who can control his own blood. He can pressurize his blood and shoot it out at supersonic velocity. I'm wondering how accurate does this sound to you? Love from Taiwan. Well, I have family members in Taiwan. I've never been. I hear it's lovely. I want to go. I hear you have wonderful fruit that tastes amazing. So hello to Taiwan and every Taiwanese person watching. Controlling your own blood doesn't, like consciously doing it, doesn't sound very feasible. However, there are animals that use their own blood in kind of the same way. So it's semi-plausible. There's a lizard, I forget the name. It's very horny. Not like that. It's got horns all over it. And what it does when it gets angry, or tries to deter predators, it shoots blood out of its eyeballs into your face. So there is some biology there that can pressurize the blood and shoot it out of a specific evolved orifice in an offensive, defensive kind of way. So the guy's kind of based on the lizard, so that's fine. It's more plausible than, you know, something impossible. So it gets my seal of approval. It gets my leopard seal of approval. Animals are fun. Phoenix Soren with the 5 says, someone actually used math to determine, based on the carry behind them, that this Godzilla in the top right images is a third the size he should be. Yes, movies do this a lot, where they have to rescale things to work right. So, you know, isn't Godzilla supposed to be like 300 feet tall or 100 feet tall, something like that? 100 meters? 50 meters? I don't care. But yeah, to make them fit on screen and to make it seem like more of a fight, they probably scaled Godzilla down. Nate Dill with the 20 says, I've been wanting to ask you this for a while. If you used Vantablack and the super reflective paint you covered before on a Crookes radiometer, would it spin faster? I don't know what that is. Is it one of those things that absorbs light and then moves? Well, what moves... photonic pressure can move stuff. We know that. Solar sails work in space. They just capture the momentum of photons. They sail on the sun, as Carl Sagan envisioned. So that's possible. You can move stuff with light. Light has a pressure. It can push stuff with a force. Would it push with more force if that surface is more reflective or absorptive? I'm going to say yeah, right? Because if it's a perfectly elastic collision and it perfectly reflects off of it, it's not absorbing the maximum amount of momentum. It's just transferring some of it, like 2 billiard balls smacking together. So if you used Vantablack paint, it would absorb, I'm guessing, 99.9% of that momentum and probably push it better. But that can't be right. Then why do they use Mylar for solar sails and not something super, super, super dark and black? If anyone can solve that in the chat, that'd be awesome, because am I thinking wrong about this? Is reflective more efficient? I don't know. I've had a lot of coffee. Let's pause the super chats for a second, because we've been talking for a long time. We've got to get to our second topic, or we can just keep chatting. Whatever you want. I don't care. Hey, Kyle. Tactile the Dilophosaurus with the 20 says, hey Kyle, how tough do you think Godzilla's scales really are? Any possible analogs? His hide has been taken 127 millimeter shells from Burke class destroyers. So do you have an idea of how thick that boy would be? I don't know. I'm not super up on my ballistics. No, I don't know. I mean, I'm assuming if it's a scale-like material, it's like it's keratin, some hard biological product. So, so many super chats coming in. I'm trying my best, but we got to keep talking. We got to keep getting to stuff. We have just pause him. Sahil with the 5 says, hey Kyle, can you suggest a sci-fi book similar to Dune and The Expanse? You think Dune is science fantasy rather than fiction? Yeah, Dune's a little bit of both. Dune is really great because it was written by a guy who, had a lot of environmental engineering experience. So there's a lot of science in it. But it is more science fantasy. Recommending a book more like The Expanse. Off the top of my head, if anyone else... I was getting interested in a book. Is it The Supernova Age? By the Chinese author who wrote The Three-Body Problem. I think it's called The Supernova Age, or something like that, where a supernova goes off, or something like that, gamma burst, and it irradiates all of the planet, and because of that, all of the people over a certain age can't repair the DNA damage, so the world starts. They have to prepare the world to be run by children, and it's a fun concept, and there's a lot of science in it. I think it's called the supernova age. Woolly Tiger with the 10 says, "Hey Kyle, I'm starting to get a little bit delirious, so give me a second." Woolly Tiger, this is the second time you asked this, I think, so sorry for that. Hey Kyle, would a spacecraft be able to escape Earth's atmosphere easier if it launched from a giant tube, like a rifle for spaceships? Well, there's a railgun type way you could launch ships into space, and this is something that has been considered. A big problem is the acceleration. So you can't really accelerate people much faster than 3G, 4G for an extended period of time. A railgun to get you out of the atmosphere, I mean, it's going to be... It needs to give you the acceleration that wouldn't kill people. It would have to be so long. I don't know if it's practical versus chemical propellant. And the last for this segment, just a second. Danielle Trisse with the 20 says, "Love the old show, now loving the new one even more. Thank you for making science entertaining for all of us. My question, if space-time runs backwards beside yourself, would you see the world mirrored and upside down if space-time runs backwards beside you?" I don't have a clue. I really don't. That's a really complicated question. I have no idea. And it's sometimes it's good to say you don't know. Because then, you don't want to sound like, you don't want to sound like a know-it-all all the time. Then who are you? Some scientist on Twitter who's constantly making people angry? Not this guy. So this is short. I wanted to show you this. This is really cool. So this image may look like Godzilla pointing his head towards the skies and firing a beam of radiation. No, this is real. This was taken aboard the International Space Station. This happened within a few milliseconds. So this isn't like a continuous beam. Don't gift that. But this was indeed happened. This indeed happened. Any guesses as to what this is? I already saw someone in the chat get it exactly right. I can tell when I've had too much caffeine, I've been talking too much, because my teeth and my fingertips start to get tingly, like I'm about to pass out. But that's not going to happen. Kyle, are you calling out Dr. Tyson on Twitter? No! I think he communicates very effectively on Twitter. So so a lot of people are saying this is lightning, but it is a certain kind of lightning. This is what's called a blue jet. So how does lightning work? So usually, how you make lightning is you have clouds. You need a cloud system. You need a cloud system that's large enough to start to create convection currents within itself. It starts to tumble and the gases move around. Now, inside of this cloud, you have small particles, dust particles, ice particles, and these particles, like when you rub a balloon on your head, when these particles are constantly slamming against each other inside of the cloud, they can start to generate a charge. They can start to transfer electrons to each other in these collisions, and that's the same thing that does when that happens when you rub a balloon on your hair. You're transferring electrons, and then you're creating a charge difference, right? There's a charge difference, and that creates some attraction. Now, when that happens in a thundercloud, for example, it builds up a charge enough that the charge has a large differential between the charge in the cloud and the charge usually on the ground. The ground usually having an overall positive charge and negative charge in the cloud. It just starts to generate this difference with all these tiny... It's very cool because the monumental force of nature that is lightning is generated by the tiniest little things. So once this charge differential gets large enough, you can imagine the air is acting as a insulator. But everything breaks down at some voltage. And so the distance that a spark could jump starts to get bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger as the charge builds and builds and builds. And then finally, crack, 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 ow! Gigajoules worth of energy is equalized in fractions of a second, like a third of the speed of light. These tendrils move. Crack, 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 crack. And lightning happens. Now, lightning usually looks white-ish, and that is just because of the air that is moving through. So there's a certain amount of gases, nitrogen, oxygen, argon, in the atmosphere, and when they are ionized, when they're excited, like we were talking about with Godzilla, to de-excite themselves, they release photons of energy. Nobody gift that. They release photons of energy, and we see it as whitish light. But this is happening up. Let me show you. This blue jet is happening up in the stratosphere, as you can see, 50 kilometers above the surface of the Earth, where the constituents of the air are different. There's not as much oxygen, for example. So you have different air. And once you have different air, when that becomes excited and de-excited, you have different photons of light, or less and more of one or kind of the other, and that makes a different color. Similarly, you can get up, if you get even higher into the atmosphere, when that air is excited and de-excited, you can get red light. And you can get what are called elves and sprites, and you get all this different kind of lightning. And I actually didn't know. I mean, I've heard of like ball lightning and some sprites, but if you want to look it up, there's many different kinds of high atmosphere lightning in many different colors, like these elves, which I've never heard of, and they're very pretty and very cool. And so when you see something like this, don't worry. It's not Godzilla shouting at you. It might just be a small electrical discharge in the upper atmosphere that you won't be able to see anyway because you're not in the International Space Station. Anyway, we've been talking for a long time. I'm having fun today. But we've been talking for a long time, and that means I'm going to have to skip something and move straight into peer review. Peer review. So this is going to be a quick one. And what I do during peer review is I take a comment that made me go, from the latest episode of the facility, and then I highlight it. I make you, the commenter, an honorary member of the facility, and then Kevin gives you a plaque. Isn't that right? And you can hang it on your wall. But you're going to need a drywall screw if you're in an apartment. Because this plaque, oh, I'm telling you, it is enormous. It is beautiful. Everyone knows that. You've all seen it. Magic Manifest says, hey, Kyle, love the show. See, I read the chat. But today, I wanted to highlight a kind of sober comment from the latest episode of the facility where we talked about the Castle Bravo disaster. And it was from our Half-Life History series that I'm loving doing. That's more somber. No jokes, nothing silly, just me talking to you about something really, really crazy. And so I want to highlight that from the latest episode, and it is this, from Mogami Kyoko, who said, this episode left me crying a little bit. In college, my Japanese film history professor said to us, quote, it's something to think about that exposure to radiation creates superheroes in America and monsters in Japan. And I wanted us to linger on this for just a moment because really think about that. Think about how singular events in history can change a culture's entire perception. Well, that's going too far. Can change an entire culture forever. So in the United States, we drop the bomb on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, and it wins us a war. And because of this, nuclear energy, nuclear weapons become something not to be afraid of. It's a weapon that we used, and we had this tremendous power, and it made us tremendously powerful. And so, nuclear energy, radioactivity can make superheroes in American culture. For example, the Hulk. Being exposed to gamma rays creates an American, very powerful, smart, weapon of mass destruction in the Hulk. But in Japan, those same gamma rays, the same gamma rays and explosions literally etched people's shadows into the walls at Hiroshima. When people were exposed to light bright enough to sear the patterns of their clothing and their kimonos into their skin. So it is completely understandable that Japanese culture had a very, very different experience with nuclear weapons, nuclear power, fallout, especially with the Castle Bravo test. And you can see it manifest in Godzilla and their relationship to that monster. It wasn't, oh, this is a big thing that's going to fight Captain America. It was more of a, wow, this big thing that we can't control, we don't know if it's good, it might destroy us, we're afraid of it, it's our friend, we could use it, like nuclear power, but we might not use it, and it can be terribly destructive. So, I think, all of these episodes that I'm doing in that vein are more somber, but I do think it's something that we should consider, where the entire outlook of a culture on some certain topic can be warped by their history and their relationship to it. This is not as somber of an example, but, why do you think people, especially in the United States, when they report, aliens or being abducted by aliens, it's all little green men that look exactly like the aliens from the most popular movies in the 60s, 70s, and 80s? Culture is warped by our perception of the world and our relationship to it. And as King of Depravity is saying, that contrast is very crazy. It's crazy, but it makes sense. And it's something that we need to keep in mind, especially moving away from that for a little bit. I will be, because I believe in it, we will be doing an episode at the facility all about nuclear power and why I believe the world needs more of it, not less. But we'll get to that soon. So for bringing up this distinction and sharing that thing from your Japanese film history professor, that I think we should all internalize that kind of perception change. Mogami, you are now indeed an honorary member of the facility. Fantastic. And now Kevin's going to get you a plaque. What? Oh, it's loaded up? Okay. You can be player 2, okay? I'm going to choose Fairy Boy. Okay, sorry, Mogami. Kevin's challenging me to something real quick. Commercial break. I'll be right back. Just a second.
From the creators of Mortal Kombat comes the next great fighting game of 2020. It's so awesome, and the controls are so nice that, yes, even Sonic Fox is going to play it after he finishes up cleaning up all the noobs on Injustice 2. Welcome to Kyle Combat. Yes, play as all your favorite Kyle characters, from Fairy Boy to you shouldn't be not wearing shoes on the internet because people will take pictures of your feet, and, of course, weighted down Goku. It's going to be the fight of the century. Who will win? Fairy Boy? Kakarot? The guy who should be wearing shoes? Ho! You'll find out this summer, after the game is delayed 3 times and then doesn't work on previous gen consoles and then gets refunded and removed from the PlayStation Store. Ho! It's gonna be wild, unless it's never playable on previous gen. This summer.
I mean, it would be nice to play Cyberpunk at one point, but I just don't think it's that good. Well, I mean, the Keanu thing's kind of distracting to me. Oh, sorry, what? I never know when those ads are going to end. A lot of people thinking I'm taking shots. I am. It's annoying when you're basically misled. I'm playing Assassin's Creed Valhalla right now. Much better. Beautiful. 60 frames per second. The PS5 looks awesome. Story's funny. I mean, the story's good. Side quests are interesting and funny. Combat's great. Looks great. Metalhead says, Cyberpunk was fine. We weren't promised fine. We were promised game-changing. And what we got was a change in the game that we didn't want. You feel me? Mateus Marin with the MX $100. I'm going to assume that's better. Hey, Kyle, nice show. What, you don't love the show? I might not read your comment. How does odor work? I've always thought it was a tiny particle of a thing enters your nose and contains that odor. If so, can you disintegrate it by just disintegrate something just by constantly smelling it? You're basically right. All odor is just some chemical floating, some molecule floating in the air, and it touches your receptors, the cells in your nose, and that's transduced into an electrical signal sent to your brain, and your brain interprets that as a smell. That's all it is. So over time, yes, something would disintegrate into its smell if that's the mode it's going to be. By which I mean, think of something like rubbing alcohol. Rubbing alcohol will evaporate very quickly, and it smells very strongly. Though you can see the translation of the thing evaporating, smelling strongly because it's evaporating so much. It's like gasoline. Gasoline is very, very strong smelling because of how much the chemicals and molecules are evaporating off of the surface, and that's because of the vapor pressure. We have AK Dragoon with a 20, says, Hey Kyle, it's Chad down in maintenance. I seem to be locked in monitor corridor D8 and no one is responding to internal comms. ARIA doesn't seem to be registering my security clearance either. Something going on that I'm not aware of? Yeah. No, of course it's me. I don't want it. I know I could just talk to you, but it's cool calling a supercomputer. Yeah, so I have I have Chad here. He says he's locked in corridor D8. You mind unlocking that real quick? He's got what? Understood. Yeah, sorry about that, Chad. Ari's not going to lock the door until you return the octo snakes that you're smuggling in your jumpsuit. They don't even make you look bigger. That was probably too much. I apologize. Don't gift that either. Just 5 more minutes or so. 5 more minutes of chatting to my favorite nerd horde here. Dio with the 5 says, Hey Kyle, Heil, remember me? Yes, I do, because I don't think I said your last name. Brando Calate. Is there a material that can hold as much energy as Godzilla's back spikes? Love the show. Interesting. I don't know. Yeah, you'd assume that his back spikes have some sort of capacitance that they can hold energy and then release it all at once. And it makes this cool noise. I don't know. I guess it's functioning as a biological battery, which would... okay, so it doesn't super work for Godzilla, but what it could be is some kind of electrocytes, which store electricity in biological cells and then can release it. And they contain this energy in a sort of capacitor kind of way by creating charge differentials within the cell by moving certain ions around the cell that have a charge, and there's a charge gradient there inside of this, like sodium and potassium have a charge. You move them around, you separate them, you can create a charge difference, and then you can release that voltage all at once, kind of like a lightning strike, and that is how electric eels work. So if Godzilla had something like electrocytes, some kind of alien electrocyte action, but what comes out of his mouth isn't electricity, so I don't know. Noah Hodges with the 5 says, hey, show, love the Kyle. Me too. We rejoined the Paris Climate Agreement this week. Do you think this will make any real impact? Absolutely. The Paris Climate Agreement isn't super binding. It doesn't have a lot of teeth, but what it does, you can't sue someone for not following it. But what it does is it shows the world that we are at least serious about the problem of climate change, and it allows you to put a lot of public pressure on countries and individuals saying like, well, you said you would do this, what are you going to do about it? So I think rejoining the Paris Climate Agreement is a good move. It shows the world we're serious, and it's a step in the right direction. We have to do stuff like this, even if it's symbolic, because we need to be the change we want to see in the world, right? As Gandhi said. So, in comparison to the previous administration, we're moving, in the United States, we're moving towards more science-based policy, which is good, considering that the previous administration had none of that? Shane with the 5 says, what do you think of SCP? You know what? I realized that my facility and the way I run it here is very close to SCP. Funny story, I had no idea what SCP was when I started it, so we're tangentially similar. It's a convergent evolution of ideas, I'm assuming. Jonathan Matthews with the 10 says, thanks for the choice of peer review. I had to sit down and seriously think about this. I sadly have family that are proud of dropping atomic weapons, and sadly it's a big fight topic. Yeah, I totally get that. Especially if you have, family members that have been in the military and, or in policy, there's obviously is one of the most terrible things that ever happened. There's going to be a lot of tension, a lot of strong opinions. And yeah, I mean, I'm of the opinion that we should ban all nuclear weapons and never use any of them again, ever. Should be taken off the table in terms of an option. Throw them all into the sun. Figuratively. That'd be too hard to do. So that's my opinion, but I understand. Look, I'm not just science guy. I don't understand the thing. I get it. There is a human life argument for dropping the bomb. At that point in time, you should listen to Hardcore History about this if you haven't, but at that point in time, the U.S. military in Japan had recognized that the fervor, the amazing patriotism that the Japanese public had at the time wasn't like anything else in any other military on Earth. They would fight to the death, literally, and try to take you with them. They were widely feared in the Pacific Theater for their ability to fight to the bitter end for the Emperor. It was kind of incredible, So the American calculus was that, hey, Kyle, isn't this a science show? Shut up. The American calculus was that if we have to invade Japan, we are going to cause so many casualties, so many civilians who will arm themselves and die for the Emperor. It's going to be so horrible. Why don't we just do something still horrible, but not as many people die, and it shock and awes them so much that they can see. There is an argument there. I see it, but it's a complicated topic. Tyler Polasic with the 19 says, hey, Kyle, this is great content. Hey, thank you. We have like 2 more minutes, so I better stick the landing. I was wondering, what's the worst thing we could expect within regards to the climate changing? Total destruction? Well, see, climate change is a hard problem because it's not going to be like day after tomorrow kind of stuff, and it's hard for people to really get concerned about. But at the base level, climate change is going to be, the driving cause of the worst things to happen to humanity in a long time. One bad storm can cause, thousands and thousands of people to die, can cost billions and billions of dollars. Every aspect of extreme weather is going to get worse. It's going to get harder to support people with food. It's going to cause, most people on Earth live at the edges of continents, against the ocean or near the ocean. As ocean levels rise, it's going to cause mass migrations, which is going to cause, famine, death, destruction, changes in policy that are going to be very difficult. It's mass migrations are going to cause national security risks, and on and on and on and on. And it's, the oceans are going to start, acidifying. It's going to be harder to fish, therefore harder to feed. and it creates these positive feedback loops of destruction across the biosphere, across human economies and societies, it's all going to be bad. Trust me. But I'm going to guess the mass migration of people is probably going to be the biggest thing. So I see we still have a lot of super chats, but we're almost out of time here. I'm having a good time. Yeah, I'm feeling good today, even though I'm almost delirious to the point of passing out. Joshua Clow says, with the Australian $2, quick thoughts on this season of The Expanse. It's fantastic. Best season yet. But James S.A. Corey, who's a friend of mine, says on Twitter, trying to answer all your questions about, hey, I think you got this science wrong. He doesn't like doing that. Stop tweeting at him. It's almost all correct. Just leave it alone. And finally, as always, Music Central Piano 29 with the random $50 donation where they just hit numbers on the keyboard, but it's always 50, which I always appreciate. Huge supporter of the facility and the work that we do here. Keep up the great work, Kyle. Keep moving forward. Stay scientific, rational, and safe. Thank you so much. Same to you, brother, sister, person, human being. So things didn't go according to plan at the facility this week. I tried to film an episode on the weekend. It did not work, and sometimes experiments fail, and we learn from that. But in my case, now I can't make a video. So I don't think there'll be a video this week, but there's going to be office hours for facility members at the professor level and above. We're going to have a private live stream this week, just you and me. Not like that. But please stay tuned on the channel, like the video, subscribe if you haven't yet. There's going to be a lot more content coming forward. It's going to be good. I already filmed another Half-Life history. It's going to be about something you've probably never heard of, but it's very, very morbid and morbidly fascinating, and I loved recording it. I hope you watch it. I hope you like it. Have a wonderful rest of your week. Good, for us here at the facility, the whole country didn't explode, so that's nice. I'm not in the United States. You don't know that. But new year, time to reflect, move forward, progress with passion and with evidence, and have a wonderful rest of your week, as I already said. And if I don't talk to you sooner, which I definitely won't, because you don't have my number, we can interact on Discord and have a great day. And be nice to each other. Because unless you have a multi-billion-dollar facility like me, this is all we got. Take care. Oh, wait, I'll do a Bob Ross exit, but non-denominational. Thank you.